Hi, welcome to part 2 of tube rivets. Today's episode will be a little bit shorter. I just wanted to show you a decorative tube rivet and using spacers in order to create a little depth in your piece. So I've prepped some parts and let's get started. When creating spacers with your tube rivets, the tube cutting jig definitely comes in handy because you want them to be the same thickness in your piece. So I've prepped two pieces here. And I'm just going to do a sample plate. I am working on a little pendant over here. And I've got all the holes drilled. The trickiest part really with using cold connects and tube rivets is lining everything up. A lot of times I'll drill a hole through one layer, put it down to the next layer, tape it up really well, then go through that second layer. And then when I want to make the next holes, I'll keep those together and then I'll even run a little piece of tubing through it to really keep them together and lined up. So I've got my holes drilled already on my two plates. Got a spacer. And I've got the piece of tubing cut already that's going to go through. You just kind of sandwich it. And run everything through. And then that's going to lift your second layer up. But I'm also going to show you a decorative cut on this. So I'm going to take that silver tubing back out. Because we're going to do a little sawing onto that. I've placed my tube into this little holding jig. And I've put it down as high as it sticks above the sheet that I'm riveting. I'm going to take my jeweler's saw and cut 3 different little slices into it down up to the tool that it's holding, it. Just going to rotate it a little bit. So essentially I'm cutting like slices of pie. And I'll show you a close-up on that. Since I'm going to have 2 tube rivets in this one piece, I want to go ahead and set my spacer under the other side, under the other hole that I'm going to rivet, and go ahead and put the tubing in. Because that'll hold my 2 pieces in line. Sometimes when you put one rivet in and you still have more to go, it just shifts enough. So the more rivets and tubes that you can get in place to hold it, the better. Just giving it a few taps, flip to the other side. Just to get the flare going. And if you have dapping tools, you can grab those at this point and use them. And just gradually move up to a larger ball size. And then I still like to switch over to a hammer once I've gotten that flare pretty well out. And remember to tap around the outer edge. There, that's a tube rivet using a spacer. Now I'll work on this one that we've cut the pie slices into the silver tube. Light tap on each side. Switch over to the hammer. And this one's really cool because then you've essentially created a flower. I'll put a little patina on this and that'll make it show up better for you. Okay, put a little patina on there just to make that rivet pop a little bit more for you. But that makes a really sweet little flower rivet. And you can even make the petals more rounded by taking your file after you've sliced the pie with your jeweler saw, and then take like a V file and go in between each slice. That way you can kind of round the edges of the rivet. The cool thing about this with creating the spacer, you've essentially made a bail on your piece, because you could just run your chain right between the two layers. And there you'd have a way to hang your chain to create a necklace. It was really nice along the chain. strung my chain through there. I have a necklace that is completely cold connected. Absolutely no torch work on this at all. I created some tricky spots to rivet, but you kind of just have to maybe stack up some pieces in order to get underneath. Like I was setting this right on the edge to get the, and it actually moved this little moth a little bit in order to get in there. Sometimes I'll start the flare just out here. You probably saw me doing that. And then I can put it in with whichever direction I can't easily get the hammer to. So like the flower, I started that flare and then set it in that way and then mainly worked it from the back side. This little guy moves a little bit. He's not going anywhere, but it would have really been ideal to put another spacer below the bottom layer and the middle layer, which would have been 2 spacers for that one moth. But again, he's not going anywhere. He just kind of moves a little bit. But I hope that gives you some ideas. Using cold connects can be a lot trickier, I think, because you really have to plan out each step. I mean, I had to sit and really think which rivets I was going to start first on this and how I was going to move from one step to the next. I like that. That was a lot of fun, challenging. Next week we'll talk about making tabs. And I think we'll do another moth, and we'll use all the tube rivets that we've done, the layers, and then add tabs and see what we come up with. See you next week.